The room was cold. 5 military judges sat at a long table, their faces hard as stone. Lieutenant Ju-Ray Kim stood before them, back straight, chin up. Her dark uniform was perfect, not a wrinkle to be seen, but it didn't matter now. "Lieutenant Kim, you disobeyed direct orders," said the head judge, a gray-haired woman with cold eyes. "You were told to leave the mining colony. Instead, you stayed to help civilians escape." "Yes, sir," Ju-Ray said. Her voice did not shake. "Those orders came from the highest level of command." "Yes, sir, but there were still 300 people left. The enemy ships were still 20 minutes away." The judge's eyes narrowed. "It was not your call to make." Ju-Ray said nothing. What could she say? She would do it again. 300 lives saved was worth more than her career. "This court finds you guilty of insubordination in a time of war," the judge said. "The usual punishment is death." A small gasp escaped from someone in the room. Ju-Ray's face remained blank. "However, in light of your past service, we have a different sentence." The judge slid a folder across the table. "Exile. To planet DP-415. Ju-Ray picked up the folder. Inside was a single page with a picture of a gray-brown planet, DP-415, known as a dead planet. No valuable resources, toxic air, nothing worth saving. "Your pod will have 6 months of food, water, and air," the judge continued. "You will set up basic equipment to collect data. After that..." The judge didn't finish. She didn't need to. After that, Ju-Ray would die. Alone. On a rock no one cared about. "Do you understand your sentence, Lieutenant?" "Yes, sir." "Launches tomorrow at 600. Dismissed." Ju-Ray sat in the tiny deployment pod as it shot away from the main ship. Through the small window, she watched Earth grow smaller. It was the blue jewel of the galaxy, perfect and beautiful. She might be the last human to see it with her own eyes. The war with the Coalition was going badly. That's why every resource, every ship, was needed on the front lines. That's why she was ordered to leave those miners behind. The pod computer beeped. Auto-sleep starting in 30 seconds. Ju-Ray closed her eyes. When she woke, she would be at DP-415. Her new home. Her final home. Auto-sleep complete. Arrival at DP-415 in 5 minutes. Ju-Ray blinked awake. Her mouth was dry. Through the window, she saw a planet that looked like a dirty marble. Brown clouds swirled around its surface. "Entering atmosphere," the computer said. "Warning. Turbulence detected." The pod began to shake. Ju-Ray gripped her seat as the tiny ship was tossed around like a leaf in a storm. The brown clouds outside turned dark, almost black. Lightning flashed around the pod. "Hull temperature rising," the computer warned. "Deploying extra shields." Ju-Ray's teeth rattled in her head. This was a bad entry, worse than the simulations. For a moment, she wondered if the judges had sent her here hoping she would die on arrival. A crash would be cleaner than a slow death from starvation. Then the pod broke through the clouded layer. Ju-Ray looked out at her new home. It was a wasteland. Gray rocks stretched to the horizon. No water, no plants. Just dust and stone under a dirty brown sky. "Landing sequence initiated," the computer said. The pod's rockets fired, slowing their descent. Dust swirled up around them as they neared the ground. With a hard thump that made Ju-Ray's spine compress, they landed. "Deployment complete," the computer announced. "Outside atmosphere is toxic. Environmental suit required for exit." Ju-Ray sat still for a long moment. This was it. Her punishment. Her death sentence. She reached for her suit hanging on the wall. If she was going to die here, she would die doing something that mattered. She would collect data until her last breath. She would make notes about this forgotten rock. She would leave something behind. "Beginning exterior scan," the computer said. "Warning. Sandstorm approaching from the west." Juri smiled grimly as she pulled on her helmet. Welcome to DP-415. 3 weeks had passed since Juri landed on DP-415. Each day followed the same pattern. Wake up, check oxygen levels, eat a food pack, go outside to collect samples, come back, record data, sleep. Today was different. Juri's scanner had picked up something strange in the soil about 2 miles from her pod. She packed extra water and set out across the rocky ground. The brown sky never changed. No sun broke through the thick clouds. It was always the same dim light, as if the planet was stuck in an endless twilight. Juri checked her suit's oxygen meter. 4 hours left. Plenty of time to reach the spot, collect samples, and return. When she arrived at the location, she saw nothing special, just more gray rocks and dust. But her scanner beeped loudly, pointing to the ground beneath her feet. She knelt down and used a small tool to dig. The dirt was different here. Darker, almost black. She put a sample in a clear container and held it up to her helmet light. "What are you?" she whispered. The dirt seemed to move. Juri adjusted her helmet light to its strongest setting and looked closer. Tiny dots were moving in the soil, not sand or rock. Something alive. Her heart beat faster. Life on DP-415. The military scans had shown nothing. No plants, no animals, nothing that could survive in the toxic air. But these tiny things were alive, and they were everywhere in this dark soil. Juri collected more samples, her mind racing. If there was life here, what else had the military missed? She stood up and looked around. About 50 yards away, a large rock formation rose from the flat ground. Something about it caught her eye. It was too even, too straight. Juri walked toward it. As she got closer, she saw that it wasn't just a rock. It was an entrance, a doorway cut into the stone. "This isn't natural," she said to herself. Her voice sounded loud in her helmet. She switched on her suit's lights and stepped into the darkness. The passage went down, deep into the planet. The walls were smooth, clearly cut by tools. Juri's training told her to go back, to report this finding. But who would she report to? She was alone on this dead planet, and she only had 6 months to live. She kept going. The tunnel went down for nearly half a mile before opening into a large cave. Juri's lights couldn't reach all the way across it, but they did show strange markings on the walls. Pictures. Symbols. She walked closer to examine them. They showed figures that weren't human, with long arms and large heads. They were gathered around what looked like plants. "Someone made these," Juri said. "Someone lived here." As she moved deeper into the cave, her foot hit something hard. She pointed her light down. It wasn't a rock. It was a piece of metal. She picked it up. It was a tool of some kind, like a wrench, but designed for hands with 3 fingers instead of 5. Juri's oxygen meter beeped. 3 hours left. She should head back. Then she heard it, a scraping sound from deeper in the cave. She froze, listening hard. Another sound, like breathing. "Hello," she called out, feeling foolish. Whatever made these tunnels was probably long gone. But the breathing got louder, and now she could hear footsteps. Juri's hand moved to her side where her gun would normally be, but she had no weapons. The judges hadn't given her any. A light appeared in the darkness, not a natural light, a lamp of some kind with a soft blue glow. Behind the light was a figure, tall and thin, with a large head and 3-fingered hands. It wore something like a suit, with a clear helmet not unlike her own. The figure stopped about 10 feet away. It held up one hand, showing it was empty. Juri slowly raised her own hand in the same gesture. The figure spoke. The sound was like nothing Juri had ever heard, clicks and low tones that no human throat could make. Then the figure pointed to itself and made a single sound. "Tahoe." Juri pointed to herself. Juri. The figure, Tai-Ho, nodded slowly. Then it pointed to the darkness behind it and made a beckoning motion. "Come with me." Ju-Ri checked her oxygen meter again. Less than 3 hours now. She looked at Taiho, then back toward the entrance where her pod waited. Then she followed Taiho into the darkness. Taiho led Ju-Ri deeper underground. The tunnel opened into a huge cave that took her breath away. Lights glowed along the walls. Not electric lights like on Earth, but some kind of blue-green plants that gave off their own light. And there were people. Dozens of them. All like Taiho, with their large heads and thin bodies. Some wore simple clothes. Others wore suits like Taiho's. They stopped when they saw Ju-Ri. A small child hid behind its parent. Others pointed and made quick, clicking sounds to each other. Taiho raised a hand, and they grew quiet. He led Ju-Ri to the center of the cave where a group of older-looking beings sat in a circle. One of them stood. It was shorter than Taiho, but had the same features. It wore a robe with strange symbols, like the ones Ju-Ri had seen on the cave walls. "I am Mi-Jin," it said. Ju-Ri jumped in surprise. "You speak my language." Mi-Jin pointed to a small device on her suit. "We learn from your machine signals for many years." Ju-Ri realized they must have picked up radio and TV broadcasts from Earth. "What are you doing on our world?" Mi-Jin asked. Her voice was flat through the translator. "I was sent here as punishment," Ju-Ri said. "My people think this planet is dead." Mi-Jin made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Not dead. Hidden. We are the Doram. This has been our home for thousands of years. But the surface was not always like that," Taiho said. He had a translator too. "Long ago, our world was green. We lived under the sun. Then the great burning came. Solar flares," Mi-Jin explained. "Very big. They burned away our air. Those who could not get underground died." Ju-Ri looked around the cave with new understanding. "You've been living down here all this time." Taiho nodded. "But we are dying." Slowly, an older Doram approached. This one's skin was paler, its movements slower. "I am Han," he said, "elder of the council. The underground has kept us alive, but we cannot stay here forever. Our numbers grow smaller each year." Ju-Ri's oxygen meter beeped. 2 hours left. "I need to return to my pod soon," she said. "I need air." Mi-Jin looked at the others, then back to Ju-Ri. "You can take off your helmet here. This cave has air you can breathe." Ju-Ri hesitated. "How is that possible?" Taiho pointed to the glowing plants. "They make air, like the plants on your world. We have been growing them for generations, trying to make enough to take back to the surface someday. Those tiny things I found in the soil outside." Mi-Jin nodded. "Our creation. They clean the bad air, bit by bit. But it is too slow. We will be gone before the surface is ready again." Carefully, Ju-Ri unsealed her helmet. She took a small breath. The air was strange. It smelled like wet stone and something sweet. But she could breathe it. "Why are you telling me this?" Ju-Ri asked. "You don't know me." Han stepped forward. "Because you come from the sky. Your people have ships that cross the stars. Maybe you can help us." "I was sent here to die," Ju-Ri said. "I have no ship, just a small pod with supplies for 6 months." The Doram looked at each other. Some made those clicking sounds again. Their language, Ju-Ri realized. "Why were you sent to die?" Taiho asked. "I disobeyed orders to save people," Ju-Ri said. "My leaders thought that was wrong." Mi-Jin translated this to the others. They seemed to relax a little. "Then perhaps we understand each other," Han said. "Come, see what we are trying to do." He led Ju-Ri deeper into the cave network. They entered a massive cavern filled with rows of the glowing plants. Doram worked among them, tending them carefully. "This is our hope," Han said. "But we need help to make it work faster." Ju-Ri looked at the plants, then at the Doram people. They were just trying to survive, just like the miners she had saved. "I'll help you," she said. "I don't know if I can, but I'll try." For the first time, Han's face changed. It might have been a smile. "Then you are welcome here, Juri from the stars." 2 weeks had passed since Juri met the Dorem. She now spent most of her time underground, helping them with their plants. Her military training included basic engineering, and she knew more about air systems than the Dorem did. Today, she was working with Meijin in a lab cave. They were testing new ways to make the tiny soil creatures work faster. "If we can add this mineral," Juri said, pointing to a chart, "they might grow twice as fast." Meijin nodded. "Our miners can find this. There is a deep tunnel where this rock exists." A young Dorem rushed into the lab. It was a female named Subin, one of Han's helpers. "Juri," Subin called. "Your machine makes loud noises." Juri frowned. "Which machine?" "The one in your skypod. It flashes red lights." Juri's heart jumped. Her pod's alarm system was going off. She hadn't been back to check it in 3 days. "I need to go," she told Meijin. "Now." They rushed through the tunnels. Juri didn't need her suit in the main caves, but as they neared the surface, she put on her helmet. The air here wasn't clean enough yet. When they reached her pod, the warning lights were flashing all over the control panel. Juri sat down and checked the system. "What is wrong?" Meijin asked. Juri's hands froze over the controls. "A ship. There's a ship entering this planet's space. Your people, have they come for you?" Juri shook her head. "No, this isn't a human ship." She pressed more buttons, trying to get better readings. "The design is. I've seen this before. In military reports." The screen showed a large ship moving into orbit around DP 415. "Who are they?" Meijin asked. "They're called the Hegemony," Juri said, her voice tight. "They're not from Earth. They go to planets, take what they want, and leave nothing behind." Meijin made a low, worried sound. "Why would they come here? Our world has nothing of value." Juri pointed to another reading on her screen. "They're taking atmospheric samples. Your little creatures in the soil. They've been changing the air. The Hegemony must have detected the change. Is that bad?" "Very bad. The Hegemony strip planets of resources. They use slave labor from species they conquered." Juri looked at Meijin. "If they find your people, they'll enslave you, or worse." Meijin's large eyes blinked rapidly. "We must tell the council." They hurried back underground. In the main cave, Han and the other elders listened as Juri explained what she had seen. "How many come?" Taiho asked. "From the size of the ship, probably 200, Juri said, "with weapons and machines. They'll scan the planet, find these caverns, and come down." "We have nowhere to hide," Han said. "These caves are our only home." The Dorem began to talk among themselves, their clicking language fast and fearful. Juri stood up. "We don't need to hide. We can fight." The cave went silent. "Fight?" Han asked. "We are not warriors. We have no weapons." "I was a soldier," Juri said. "I can teach you. We have time, maybe 2 weeks before they land. We can prepare." "With what?" Taiho asked. "We cannot fight space travelers." Juri thought for a moment. "They won't expect resistance. This planet is supposed to be dead. That's our advantage. We can use the tunnels, the toxic air, the land itself." She looked at each of the council members. "I have 4 months of supplies left. I was going to use them to stay alive. Instead, I'll use them to help you fight." Han stood slowly. "You would do this, even knowing you might die sooner?" Juri nodded. "I was sent here to die anyway. At least this way, my death will mean something." Meijin stepped forward. "I will fight. I will learn." One by one, other Dorem stood up, young ones, strong ones. Han looked at them, then at Juri. What do we do first? Juri took a deep breath. First, we need to know exactly when and where they'll land. I need to get my scanner equipment from my pod and set up an early warning system. She pointed to the younger Doram who had volunteered. Then we start training. We don't have much time. Above them, unseen through rock and toxic clouds, the hegemony ship moved into a stable orbit and began its scan of the supposedly dead planet below. Again, Juri said firmly. Faster this time. Young Doram, named Sun, moved through the tunnel, keeping low. He carried a long metal rod with a sharp point, a spear made from parts of Juri's pod. He reached the end of the tunnel, turned, and jabbed the spear forward in one quick motion. Juri nodded. Better. You're learning. It had been 10 days since they spotted the hegemony ship. Juri's scanner showed that it would land in just 4 more days. Time was running out. In a large side cave, 20 young Doram trained with weapons. Some learned to use spears. Others practiced with slings that could throw rocks with great force. A few worked with blow tubes that could shoot tiny darts. Tahoe watched from the side. They learned quickly, he said to Juri. But will it be enough? It has to be, Juri said. She didn't add what they both knew. The Doram had no choice. If they didn't fight, they would be slaves or worse. Mai Jin entered the training cave. Come, she said. Han wants to show you something. They followed her through tunnels to a new area Juri hadn't seen before. It opened into a vast cave with a high ceiling. In the center stood Han with several other Doram. What is this place? Juri asked. Our oldest home, Han said. The first cave our ancestors found when they came underground. He pointed to the far wall. Doram workers were mixing something in large clay pots. Mei Jin has been using your ideas, Han explained. The small creatures that clean our air, she has changed them. Mai Jin stepped forward. You said the hegemony will bring machines made of metal. Our creatures now eat metal. Juri's eyes widened. You've made them into a weapon. Mai Jin nodded. We will put them in water, in food, in the air. When the hegemony comes, their tools will fail. For the first time in weeks, Juri felt hope. This is perfect. This will give us an advantage. Han led her to a table where a piece of cloth lay flat. We have made something else too. Juri looked at the cloth. It was a flag. Simple but beautiful. It showed the outline of the planet with a small plant growing from it. Around the edge were symbols. Doram writing mixed with some human letters. What does it say? Juri asked. It says, we are here, Han answered. For too long, we have hidden. No more. Juri touched the flag gently. We should put this on the surface. Let the hegemony see it when they land. Let them know this planet isn't dead. Han nodded. Tomorrow, we will place it where they will see it first. As they spoke, a young Doram ran into the cave. It was Su Bin, looking scared. The metal sky thing is moving, she said. It comes down. Juri's heart jumped. The hegemony ship. It's landing now. But my scanner said 4 more days. I do not know, Su Bin said, but it falls from the sky now. Juri ran back toward her pod, the others following. When she reached her scanner, she saw Su Bin was right. A small ship was coming down from the main hegemony vessel. It's not the full invasion, Juri said. It's a scout ship. They're sending a small team to check the planet before they all come down. What do we do? Tahoe asked. Juri thought fast. This could work in our favor. If they send down just a few, we can show them this planet isn't worth taking. Or we could capture one, Mei Jin suggested. Learn about their plans. Juri looked at the scanner again. They'll land about 2 miles from here, in the flat area to the east. We need to move fast. She turned to the Doram, who had followed her. Get Sun and 5 others. The best fighters. Bring the special weapons Mi-jin made. We're going to welcome our visitors." As the Doram rushed to prepare, Ju-ri went to her supply cabinet. At the back, hidden under clothing, was her emergency kit. She pulled out a small black box and opened it. Inside was a knife. Standard military issue. The judges had taken her gun, but they had missed this. Ju-ri strapped the knife to her leg and put on her environmental suit. Outside, the toxic air swirled under the brown sky. But now, that poison might be their best defense. Today, she told herself, we make our stand. Ju-ri and 6 Doram fighters hid behind large rocks. From there, they could see the flat area where the hegemony scout ship would land. All of them wore breathing masks, even the Doram, who could handle the bad air better than Ju-ri. "Stay low," Ju-ri whispered. "Don't move until I give the signal." The brown sky grew darker as something large moved through the clouds. The scout ship was much bigger than Ju-ri's small pod. It was black and shaped like an arrow. It came down with a roar that shook the ground. Dust flew everywhere as the ship landed. For a few minutes, nothing happened. Then a door opened in the side of the ship. A ramp came down. 3 figures walked out. They were tall, with 4 arms and hard shells like insects. They wore no breathing masks. Instead, they had small boxes on their backs that must have given them clean air. "Scouts," Ju-ri whispered to Sun, who was next to her. "They're checking if it's safe for the main force." The scouts carried long guns and small boxes that beeped. They were taking readings of the air and ground. One scout walked toward the rocks where Ju-ri and the Doram were hiding. It stopped about 50 feet away and looked down at its beeping box. The scout made a surprised sound. It called to the others. They gathered around the box, all looking at it with great interest. "They found something," Sun whispered. Ju-ri nodded. "The microorganisms in the soil. They're detecting life." One scout took a sample of the dirt and put it in a container. Then it spoke into a small device on its arm. "It's reporting back to the main ship," Ju-ri said. "Now's our chance." She gave a hand signal to Mi-jin, who was hiding behind a different rock. Mi-jin opened a small jar and poured its contents onto the ground. Millions of the special microorganisms that could eat metal spilled out. The wind, always strong on the surface, carried the tiny creatures toward the scout ship. "Wait," Ju-ri whispered. The scouts finished their call and turned back toward their ship. They didn't seem worried or alert. They hadn't spotted Ju-ri or the Doram. As the scouts neared their ship, one stopped suddenly. It shook its gun, then hit it with one of its 4 hands. Something was wrong with the weapon. "Now," Ju-ri said. Sun stood up and threw his spear. It flew straight and hit one scout in the back. The scout fell forward with a loud cry. The other 2 scouts turned, raising their guns, but nothing happened when they pulled the triggers. The metal-eating microorganisms had already damaged their weapons. Ju-ri and the other Doram ran forward. One scout tried to run back to the ship, but 2 Doram threw rope nets over it. It fell, tangled in the ropes. The last scout fought hard. It had 4 arms and was very strong. It knocked down 3 Doram with powerful swings. Ju-ri ran straight at it, ducking under its arms. She pulled out her knife and drove it into the place where the airbox connected to the scout's back. The box sparked and smoke came out. The scout made a terrible noise and fell to its knees, trying to breathe the toxic air. In less than a minute, it was over. One scout was dead from Sun's spear, one was trapped in nets, and one was dead from not being able to breathe. "Check the ship," Ju-ri ordered. "Make sure no one else is inside." Sun and 2 others ran up the ramp. They came back quickly. "Empty," Sun reported. Ju-ri looked at the scout trapped in the nets. It was still alive, watching them with 4 small black eyes. "Take it underground," she said. "We need to know what it can tell us about the main invasion force." As they dragged the scout away, Ju-ri looked at the dead ones on the ground. These were the first deaths in this war. There would be more. She picked up a piece of metal that had fallen from one scout's armor. She would add it to the fly Han had made. The first count in their kill count. They will come looking for these scouts, she told the others. We need to be ready. The Doram nodded. They were no longer afraid. They had fought. They had won. The real war was about to begin. 3 days after they captured the scout, the main hegemony ship landed. It was huge, 10 times bigger than the scout ship. It came down with a noise like thunder, crushing rocks under its weight. Jewry watched from a hidden spot as dozens of hegemony soldiers came out. They wore heavy armor and carried bigger guns than the scouts had. They found the dead scouts quickly and gathered around them. One soldier seemed to be the leader. It was taller than the others and had red marks on its shell. It pointed in different directions, and groups of soldiers spread out to search the area. They're looking for us, Jewry whispered to Taiho, who was hiding with her. Will they find the tunnels? Taiho asked. Eventually, but we've set the traps like we planned. Back in the main cave, Han was organizing the Doram. Some helped the young and old move deeper into the cave system. Others prepared weapons and Mijin's special jars of metal-eating microorganisms. The captured scout was kept in a small cave under guard. It refused to speak at first, but when Mijin showed it how the microorganisms could eat through its shell, it began to talk. Its name was Crow, and it told them the hegemony had come for the special soil. They wanted the microorganisms that could clean toxic air. Such a thing would be very valuable on many worlds. Jewry and Taiho returned to the main cave just as the first alarm sounded. The hegemony had found one of the tunnel entrances. Everyone to their positions, Jewry called. The Doram fighters moved quickly to the front tunnels. They knew what to do. They had practiced for days. The first hegemony soldiers who entered the tunnels died quickly. They stepped on hidden spikes or fell into deep holes. But more kept coming. Jewry stood with Sun and 10 other fighters at a narrow part of the tunnel. They could hear the hegemony soldiers getting closer. Remember, Jewry said, aim for the airboxes on their backs. That's their weak point. The first soldier appeared around the bend. Sun's spear took it in the chest. It fell back, but 2 more came forward, firing their guns. The shots hit the tunnel walls, sending rock chips flying. Jewry threw a jar of microorganisms. It broke on a soldier's gun. Within seconds, the gun began to spark and smoke. The soldier dropped it in surprise. The fight was fast and brutal. 3 Doram fell, hit by gunfire, but they killed 5 hegemony soldiers before the rest pulled back. They'll return with more, Jewry said. Fall back to the next position. They retreated deeper into the tunnels, leaving more traps behind them. In the main cave, Mijin ran up to Jewry. The microorganisms work well on their guns, she said, but I'm running out of the special mixture. We need more time, Jewry said. Just then, Han approached with a serious look. They have found the east tunnel, he said, the one that leads to the growing caves. Jewry's heart sank. If the hegemony reached the growing caves, they could destroy the plants that made breathable air for the Doram. I'll go, she said. Sun, bring 5 fighters and follow me. As they hurried through the tunnels, Jewry felt a sharp pain in her chest. She had been feeling worse each day. Her medicine was running low, the medicine that kept her body working right. She had been taking less than she needed to make it last longer. She pushed the pain aside. There was no time for weakness. When they reached the east tunnel, they found 2 Doram trying to hold off a group of hegemony soldiers. 1 Doram was already down, not moving. Jewry and her fighters attacked from behind. They killed 3 soldiers quickly, but the others turned and fought back hard. In the chaos, Sun was hit. He fell, blood coming from his arm. Get him out of here, Jewry shouted to the others. As they dragged Sun to safety, Jewry faced the remaining soldiers alone. Her knife flashed as she ducked and dodged their blows. She killed one more before something hit her hard in the side. She fell against the wall, her vision going dark at the edges. The last thing she saw was the hegemony leader with the red marks stepping over her. "Take this one alive," it said in a rough voice. "The commander will want to speak with the human." Ju-Ri woke up in pain. Her head hurt, and her side felt like it was on fire. She was in a small metal room. Her hands were tied to a chair. Across from her sat the hegemony leader with the red marks on its shell. Up close, she could see its 4 black eyes watching her. "Human," it said in a rough voice. "You are far from your world." Ju-Ri said nothing. "I am Commander Drek of the hegemony," it continued. "You have cost me 17 soldiers. Impressive for a dead planet." "This planet isn't dead," Ju-Ri said. Her voice was dry and cracked. "No, it has quite a treasure. The soil creatures that clean air," Drek said, "and strange tunnel people who fight well." Drek stood up and walked around Ju-Ri's chair. "But it will not matter. We have found 3 entrances to their tunnels. My soldiers are inside now, hunting them down." Ju-Ri's heart sank. She had been captured. The defense was failing. "We will take what we want," Drek said. "The air-cleaning creatures, the tunnel people as workers. Then we will leave this rock." "The Doram won't surrender," Ju-Ri said. "Doram? Is that what they call themselves?" Drek made a sound like laughter. "They will surrender, because we have you." Drek pressed a button on the wall. A screen lit up showing the inside of the hegemony ship. In a large room, many hegemony soldiers surrounded a group of captured Doram. One of them was Sun. His arm was wrapped in a bloody cloth. "We will execute one every hour until they surrender," Drek said. "Starting with this one." The screen showed a soldier pushing Sun to his knees. "No," Ju-Ri shouted, pulling at her ropes. "Then tell me how to find their main home," Drek said. "Where do they hide their young ones? Where do they grow their plants?" Ju-Ri looked away from the screen. She couldn't betray the Doram, but she couldn't let Sun die either. Suddenly, a loud alarm sounded. Drek turned to the screen. A soldier was there, speaking fast in the hegemony language. "What do you mean, equipment failure?" Drek shouted. The soldier held up a gun. Parts of it were falling off, turning to dust. Drek turned to Ju-Ri. "What is happening?" Ju-Ri smiled through her pain. "Me Jin," she said. While Drek was distracted, Ju-Ri worked on her ropes. They were already weak, eaten away by tiny microorganisms that must have been on her clothes. The alarm got louder. More soldiers appeared on the screen, all showing weapons and equipment that were falling apart. "The metal eaters," Ju-Ri said. "They're everywhere in these tunnels. In the air, in the water, on every surface." Drek stepped back, looking at its own armor with sudden fear. "Your soldiers have been carrying them into your ship," Ju-Ri said. "On their feet, on their clothes, for days now." The ropes finally broke. Ju-Ri jumped up and tackled Drek before it could call for help. They fell to the floor, fighting hard. Drek was stronger with its 4 arms, but Ju-Ri was fighting for her life and for the Doram. She grabbed a piece of metal that had fallen from the chair and stabbed it into one of Drek's eyes. Drek roared in pain. Ju-Ri hit it again and again until it stopped moving. She took Drek's key card and ran out of the room. The ship was in chaos. Alarms were going off everywhere. Soldiers ran back and forth, their weapons falling apart in their hands. Ju-Ri followed the signs to the holding area. 2 guards stood at the door, but their guns had already been eaten away. Ju-Ri charged at them. She was weak and hurt, but they were confused and scared. She knocked them down and used the key card to open the door. Inside, Sun and the other Doram were still tied up. Ju-Ri cut them free. Mi-Jin's plan worked, Sun said, smiling despite his injured arm. "We need to get out of here," Ju-Ri said. "The whole ship will be eaten away soon." They ran through the halls of the ship, Most hegemony soldiers were too busy with their failing equipment to stop them. Those who tried found that their armor was weakening, making them easy to overpower. When they reached the exit ramp, Ju-Ray saw an amazing sight. Hundreds of Doram were attacking the ship from outside. They swarmed over it like ants, throwing jars of microorganisms at every metal surface. Leading them was Mei-Jin, holding the flag with one hand and a spear with the other. The Doram fight back. Mei-Jin shouted when she saw Ju-Ray. Together, they fought their way clear of the ship as it began to collapse from within, its metal structure being eaten away bite by tiny bite. 3 months had passed since the battle with the hegemony. DP-415 looked different now. The Doram had come to the surface, building small homes from the remains of the hegemony ship. They still wore breathing masks, but not all the time. The air was changing. Ju-Ray stood on a small hill, watching the sunrise. The brown clouds were thinner now. Sometimes she could see patches of blue sky. Mei-Jin's microorganisms were working faster than anyone had expected, cleaning the air bit by bit. "The scanner says 17% oxygen now," said a voice behind her. Ju-Ray turned to see Sun walking up the hill. His arm had healed well, though he would always have a scar. 17%, Ju-Ray repeated. Not enough to breathe freely, but better than before. Sun nodded. Mei-Jin says in another year, we might be able to live up here without masks for short times. They looked down at the small village below. Doram children played in the open air for the first time in generations. Their parents watched nervously, checking their masks often. In the center of the village stood a tall pole. From it flew the flag Han had made, now with pieces of hegemony armor sewn into it. At the base of the pole was a stone with marks carved into it. 83 marks. The number of hegemony soldiers who had died on this planet. The elders want to talk to you, Sun said. They're meeting in the old council cave. Ju-Ray followed Sun down the hill. Her side still hurt from the wound she got during the battle. Her medicine had run out weeks ago. She knew she was getting sicker, but she didn't tell anyone. There was too much work to do. In the council cave, Han and the other elders sat in a circle. Mei-Jin was there too, working on some new experiment with the soil creatures. Ju-Ray, Han said, standing slowly. He was older now, the battle having taken its toll. We have something to show you. Mei-Jin held up a small device. It was making a beeping sound. It's from your pod, Mei-Jin explained. It started making noise an hour ago. Ju-Ray took the device. It was her emergency communicator. She had forgotten about it. She pressed a button, and a voice came out. Lieutenant Kim, this is Captain Park of the Earth Ship Horizon. We have received your pod's automatic signal, responding to locate and retrieve. ETA 4 days. Please confirm life signs. The cave was silent. Everyone looked at Ju-Ray. Earth, Sun said finally. Your people are coming for you. Ju-Ray stared at the communicator. 6 months ago, she would have given anything to hear that message. To know she wasn't forgotten. To know she wouldn't die alone on this rock. But now, will you go back? Han asked quietly. Ju-Ray looked around the cave. At Mei-Jin, who had created the weapons that saved them all. At the other elders who had trusted her when they had no reason to. At Sun, who had fought beside her and nearly died. She looked at the flag hanging on the wall, the symbol of a planet that had found its voice again. This is my home now, she said. My sentence was to die here, but instead, I found something to live for. She pressed the button on the communicator. This is Lieutenant Ju-Ray Kim. I am alive, but I am not alone. I repeat, I am not alone. This planet is inhabited. Prepare for first contact protocols with the Doram people. She released the button and looked at Han. We need to prepare. Earth will want the microorganisms too. We need to make sure they understand. This planet is not for taking. It's for sharing. Han nodded. We will be ready. We have a strong leader. And a flag. Sun added with a smile. And a kill count. No one will think this is a dead planet anymore. Mai Jin stepped forward with a small plant in her hands. It was unlike the ones in the growing caves. This one had blue leaves and a small purple flower. The first new plant on the surface in 1,000 years, she said. I think we should plant it by the flag. Juri took the plant carefully. Its flower was small but strong, like the Doran themselves. Together, they walked outside into the changing air of a planet reborn. Behind them, the communicator beeped again with questions from Earth, but those could wait. Today, they would plant a flower. Tomorrow, they would build a world. The dead planet was alive again.